The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondell.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stage Door Show. Tonight, this is Dave Hondell. Tonight, I have a great guest, Nicole Peplinski. Nicole has had a great and interesting career, which we'll get into. Just fascinating how she got into entertainment. But you've seen her on General Hospital in a recurring role on ABC. She's been in the movie Scrap, The Downside of Bliss, working on several other projects right now. So please welcome to the show, Ms. Nicole Peplinski. How you doing, Nicole?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being on our show. It's a real honor for us to have you on. I wanted to start out because, looking at your past, I know you had the ability to get into the finance world many, many times, and you had some very lucrative offers, but you decided to go with your passion and move out to LA and get into acting. So talk about that, because I know you were approached by several different people that are high profile that said, hey, I think you can make it in this industry. So, how many people get that opportunity? So talk about that a little bit and your start in this business.
Yeah, it was so crazy. So I was going to school at American University in Washington, D.C., and I'm like super driven and hardworking, and I was putting myself through college. So I was also a live-in nanny to pay for room and board. And then I very much, even as a teenager, I believed in work. Like I have a robust work ethic, and I think a work ethic really takes you places. And so in college, I went to school full time, was putting myself through college, was a live-in nanny to pay for room and board. And I did 2 internships a semester at brokerage firms. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I was at one, Tuesday, Thursday at the other one. And yeah, it was wild. I just thought, it will really give me a chance if I have this kind of resume. And so stockbrokers, it was, especially back then, right. It was in Georgetown. So it was all males, these super driven, aggressive males. And I got stopped at career day. I went to career day, and I was like going by different booths, and this guy's like, you should come in. You would love this. And he was just talking to me about the job, and I thought it sounded interesting. I went in for one interview, started with them, and then the next semester was doing 2 a semester at different brokerage firms all over DC. It was so much fun. I was into it. I loved the pace. I loved the drive. And it was funny because I was literally one of the only or few girls in any brokerage firm. I just stayed really focused and worked really, really hard. And I was actually treated very, very well. I was really thankful. It was a lot of fun. And one day I was walking home from the school gym, and this guy was waving me down while he was driving, and it's DC. So I'm like, oh, he's probably lost. Right. So I kind of I came over and I leaned in, and he's talking to me, and I'm waiting for him to ask me directions or something. And he's just kind of looking at me. He's like, what's your name? I'm like, Nicole. He's like, Nicole, you know who I am? And I'm like, he's like, Nicole, I'm BB King. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, you are. It just wasn't registering. So, I'm walking home from the school gym, and I just didn't, it completely floored me. And it's DC, it's not like it was LA or something like that. I came from upstate New York, so I wasn't exposed to that kind of stuff. Yeah. And he just started talking to me. It was like a crew of people in the car, and they're like, come with us to the Cheesecake Factory. And I'm like, okay, I have to go home and change. I'm like, just worked out at the gym. So I changed really quick and met them at the Cheesecake Factory. And we were just talking, and it was very surreal. Yeah. And then he was just like, so you're becoming a stockbroker? I'm like, I am. I'm becoming a broker. He's like, I don't see it. You're not. I'm like, no, really, I am, And I'm thinking he meant because I was a woman and I was young. And he's like, no, really, you should move to LA. Have you considered acting? I think. And I'm like, it was just so left field that I just was
dream, yeah.
It was just so surreal. And I'm trying to digest the entire experience. And I'm 20 years old trying to think about all this stuff. And it was nuts. It was wild. And he's like, you should move to LA. You got to do it. And they're all I'm thinking, I can't do this. This is nuts. And I invested so much in college. It's like, there was no, you know what I mean? I really put myself through it. So, I was trying to digest all that, and I was letting it marinate. And 2 weeks later, so Georgetown doesn't really have any buses. So you have to walk way up to where the buses are to grab a bus or train or whatever, So I was walking and I happened to notice a pizza. I'm like, oh, I was like, maybe I'll grab a quick slice before I get home and start nannying and cooking and cleaning for a family of 5. And so I looked, I'm like, oh, shit, there was such a line. I'm like, do I have enough time to grab a slice of pizza and go? And all of a sudden this big arm reaches through a crowd and he's like, hey, you're with Will Smith, right? And I'm like, no. Wow. And another guy comes over and he's like, no, but you should be. It was one of his bodyguards. Wow. And so his crew was there. And they just same type of bizarre thing. This is like 2 weeks later. And they're like, come hang with us. I'm like, well, I'm babysitting. Can you, we'll talk later. So I stayed in touch with them. Like, you should move to LA. You should try acting. Wow. You can reach out to us. And I'm thinking, and I'm very much a woman of faith. Like, I pray a lot. And I'm thinking, this is like crazy. And a few weeks later, like it was just boom, 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 boom. I was at a brokerage firm that I was interning at, and one of the presidents I think he was actually one of the owners as well, just kind of pulled me over. He's like, "Oh," I'm like, yeah. So I grabbed my notepad and paper and I go into his office, sit down, and he's like, "So how you doing?" I'm like, "Good, everything's good." He's like, I know this sounds really weird, but have you ever thought about being an actress? And this is like the owner of a brokerage firm in Georgetown. And I'm like, God, Greg, I still remember this conversation like it was yesterday. I'm like, God, Greg, I thought you were going to make me a job offer. He's like, Nicole, if you want the job, you can have it. But I don't know. It's really weird. I've just been really thinking about that for you lately. Isn't that odd? I'm like, more than you would know. And I told him what was going on. He's like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And it's just one of those things where you're just thinking, is life talking to me? Is God talking to me?
All
is it
these signs that are pointing, a certain direction. I guess one question is, did you ever have any ambitions to be an actress when you were younger, or is this all just kind of just started then?
No. So what's funny is, I was raised like old school immigrant Italian, and the plan for my life from when I was little is you're going to get married, make good sauce, and beautiful babies.
Yeah.
There was no, like, me going away to college. I had to put myself through college. Like, right. It was a big debate because I moved from upstate New York to go to school in DC. And, sure. So when I was a little girl, I used to put on shows all the time. And my grandmother was a saint. She would sit and watch them forever. But I would put together these big productions. I put my siblings, my cousins, anyone like in them, and like do these big productions. But it never dawned on me it was something I could do, because what I was going to do is make sauce and babies. Right. So I never was exposed to that. And in high school, I wanted to be in the dance team, and my mom said, no, they're too sexy. You can't do that kind of stuff. Like, anytime I even looked at that, it was kind of shifted me in a different direction.
Very traditional upbringing. Yeah.
Totally. So it just wasn't even part of an option. You know what I mean? So I love that stuff. Not every little girl puts on big shows and puts all their cousins and everyone in it. And I watched The Fabelmans and just thought, oh yeah, it's just always just raised, you're going to be a baby, a mother, not, have a career or anything like that. So no, but I used to, put on plays and write them and cast everyone in, all the little ones, like all my siblings, my cousins, anyone in them. But it never dawned on me till then.
Fast forward, then you go on vacation to LA, and what happened in that vacation that made you stay there?
Yeah. So I just felt guilty about the thought of leaving my family to move 3,000 miles away. And if that guilt wasn't there, they were enforcing it hard. Like, this was, this is not an option. And so I had 6 job offers in DC from brokerage firms I had interned at, and I didn't take any of them. I just felt like I didn't feel it in my gut to do it. And I loved DC. I loved interning. Then I started interviewing in New York City. I even interviewed with Revlon, and I got a second interview, and I didn't take it. Like, nothing was sticking. And I was really stressing out. And my sister, this was, it was months after I graduated, and I was still, that's not me to be kind of fumbling like that. I just couldn't, I couldn't really make sense of anything. Nothing seemed to click and seem right. And my sister said, listen, I'm going to go to LA on vacation to see one of my college friends that just moved out there. And I'm like, oh, okay. She's like, Nicole, come, take a break from all of it. If you step away from interviewing, maybe it'll give you some clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe it's just good to take a break. So that's kind of what I did. I was like, initially said, yeah, I'm going to go with you on vacation. And eventually it just kind of just started coming to me, and I'm like, maybe I'm not going just on vacation. And I always, it's interesting, but even when I was a little girl, I just always kind of prayed a lot. Yeah. And so I just kept thinking, could this be? And so I pulled my sister aside. I'm like, Celeste, I don't know. I think I'm maybe supposed to stay in LA. And she's like, oh, don't tell mom and dad, don't do it. So I'm like, what am I going to do? She's like, listen, don't say a word. And just pack a lot in your suitcase, and we'll stuff as much as we can in mine, just in case.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the plan. So like I kind of anticipated coming out here and be like, it's a great vacation. I'm good.
Yeah.
We packed very heavily, and my sister's like, Nicole, you want this? Like, it was like a week's time, and I was really struggling with it. And my sister actually helped me stay, which was crazy. And right before we left, we were eating at a restaurant in Beverly Hills. And they were saying how there's like a year-long wait list to become a waiter in Beverly Hills and the whole thing. And I'm like, wow, I can't, like, here it is, like, you're going for like a job interview as a broker, and they'll take you and you start training. But to be a waiter in Beverly Hills, you've got a year-long wait list. It's just wild.
Sure.
And the waiter,
there,
yeah. And it was just crazy. And so the waiter found out that I was thinking about staying. My sister told him. And so he grabbed the manager and said, this woman right here is thinking about moving to LA to be an actress. And they decided if I'd stay, they would give me a job on the spot that I could start like a week. And so I was like, oh my God, no big thing like pressure or anything. So it's totally stressing. And I will attribute my sister just as like, Nicole, this is what you want. You're so excited. You have to do this. And I was crying. I was stressed. I'm like, I feel like I'm a bad daughter. And I was really having a hard time with it. And she's like, you have to do it. So I get up, my sister left and I stayed. And my sister got off the plane, and my parents, she's like, in a way, it was really heartbreaking because they didn't believe her. They just kept thinking, where is she? She's hiding. She's like, no, really, she didn't get on the plane. Yeah. And so they stuck around waiting to see if I was hiding. And my sister said it was very heartbreaking because they just didn't believe it. But 2 months later, I think it was 2 months, it was very shortly after, someone was coming in town that knew my sister that I had met before. And they said, why don't we all go out for sushi? And I'm like, okay, sure. So we go on Sunset Boulevard to this restaurant that's, I don't think is open anymore, called Miyagi's. It used to be open on Sunset. And it's 3 stories. It was massive. And on the 3rd floor, they have these beautiful windows, and you can see out all the city, and it's so pretty. And they have karaoke. And so we sat down and we ordered sushi. And then the server was like, so you guys want to stay for karaoke? I'm like, okay, not knowing, because all of us were new to the area.
Yeah.
So we're standing there and kind of watching people, and one person after another is kind of getting up, and there's growing more and more people coming in, right? And all of a sudden someone taps on my shoulder, and I turned around, and it's this guy, and he's like, so you can get up and sing? I'm like, no, I won't sing. And so I just turned back around, and all of a sudden a group of people come running up and like, Nicole, do you know who that was? I'm like, no. They're like, Nicole, that's Jamie Foxx. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. And so it didn't register, and so all of a sudden he gets up on the stage. He's like, I'm Jamie Foxx, and this is Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown. And I'm like, oh my God. And they got up and were stood on the side. Bobby and Jamie were singing. Like, it was like a concert. So there's like a few thousand people there. It was crazy.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
It was very surreal. Like one of those moments you're like, wow, you can move to LA and like this crazy stuff happens. And I was on the 3rd floor. I didn't know there was a bathroom on the 3rd floor. So I went down to the 2nd floor, and he jumped into the crowd, chased me down the stairs, was like, so are you leaving? I'm like, no, I just have to use the bathroom. He's like, come back to our house for a party after. There's a whole bunch of people coming. I'm like, well, I'm with a bunch of friends. And he's like, no, bring them. It's a huge party. So I did. So we all went back to his house, and it was like very surreal because we had to wait for them to clear the house. And then valet pulled the cars up, and my friend's driving. I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and all of a sudden he taps on our window. He's like, okay, I'm in the first car. Then there's Whitney and Bobby. You guys follow Whitney and Bobby up to my house. And she's like, and she just turns over. She's like, Nicole, only you. This is like insane.
It's like a movie in itself.
No, totally. It was so crazy. So I still remember it because it was a big moment for me. And so we followed him up to their house, and everybody was there. These athletes were there. It was like, he is notorious for his parties, and I get why. Like, everybody was there. It was a ton of fun. And someone approached me from Procter & Gamble and was kind of like, look, I saw what happened. And if you can get his attention, you can get teen's attention. And at the time I was in particularly good shape. And she's like, we need someone as a spokesperson for Southern California Teen Health. And next thing I knew, I had a job interview and I started like a month later as a spokesperson for Teen Health. So I would do that during the day. And yeah, that's kind of how that all started.
That's insane. It sounds like an actual movie. I mean, just think about that down the road, because that's a movie in itself, and then not only that, but I think these are all signs, obviously, to do what you're, continuing to do. But, General Hospital, like soap opera, one of the most, notorious, just unbelievable, soap operas in the history of TV. You have a recurring role on that on ABC, and, the movie that, Scrap and The Downside of Bliss and some of these other great movies that you've been in. You've trained with some of the greatest trainers, acting coaches out there. And you also have, improv and that type of thing. So talk about your training, because, we have listeners that we make a big deal about training on the show, because I think it's one of the most important things. And some of the actresses and actors like yourself that have been doing this for a long time, they still continue to go to acting class, and they continue to see acting coaches, because it's one of the most important things you can do is to maintain, your craft. And there's so many different methods. And, so talk about the importance of all the training that you've had, and for our listeners, the importance of continuing that training.
Yeah, because you actually have a lot of like indie actors and people coming up, and it's like, the truth of the matter is, even if you have some kind of marketability where you're getting plucked up, if you show up and you can't do the work, you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to, you know what I mean? And you really, if you're going to do it well. And I'm a big believer in training. So I take every Sunday night, I have a Sunday night class that I take at Stan Kirsch Studios, and have a scene partner that I work with 5 nights a week. So we're 6 nights a week right there. And then I take with Larry Moss. He actually, you probably know who he is. He's like one of the renowned teachers. He used to teach at Juilliard. He was one of their huge renowned professors. And then he ended up moving to Los Angeles and just really focusing on this. And I mean, he trains from Helen Hunt to Leonardo DiCaprio, and he offers for people like me that have a couple bookings here and there, if you get accepted in, you can take his intensive. And I took his intensive, and he happened to ask me a few questions after he did my scene. And at the end of the week, I asked him, I said, do you take other people on? Would you ever take someone that's not like Leonardo, like some huge name? And he said, yeah. I said, like me? And he said, yeah. And everybody's jaw kind of dropped. And I'm like, it just goes to show sometimes you have to put yourself out there.
Right.
And literally he sends me like 4 plays a month. He says, choose one, read them all. And then we work together on plays, just because it's a very different craft than what I do at Stan Kirsch, which is more like an intense scene study. He kind of actually really works on breaking it down. And he's gifted. Like what he does is unbelievable. And I am in UCB. I'm almost done, graduated, but I took 101, 201. I'm at 301 now. And I think improv adds so much, whether you're doing drama or comedy. So I really feel like it's important to kind of touch all of it. Like, I know that some people kind of lean into specifics, but for me, I think that there's scene study, and then there's just really script analysis, right? So scene study I do with Stan Kirsch Studios. Script analysis is Larry Moss for sure. I feel like he is literally renowned for being one of the best for it. And then when it comes to improv, I mean, I think UCB is kind of holds its own. We have a lot of hitters that come out of UCB.
Well, for anybody that doesn't know, UCB is Upright Citizens Brigade, and there's also, I know out in LA you have Groundlings out there in Second City in Chicago, and some really renowned improv. And I'm a huge improv guy. I've always believed in improv, and I think improv, every actor should take improv, because I think it helps you think on your feet, and it helps you, especially on the stage. If you're going to be in front of 2,000 people on Broadway and a scene goes sideways, it's great training for you to kind of pick things back up again and not even think twice about it. So, to talk about the importance of improv in your career.
Yeah, no, I feel like there's so much to be said for it. Even if someone kind of flubs the line, when you're doing something, if you can, because you can't, as much as you need to be married to copy, and I love writers, and I think that you
Yeah.
should be married to copy and really get it. If someone's not, and someone fudges a line or skips your line and go, if you don't have the adaptability to just hop and keep going, if the camera's still rolling, it really holds up the whole set. It does. I mean, it's kind of the difference between a trained professional and one that isn't. Like, I think that it just aids you as an actor in those ways.
Right.
And it gives you so many different perspectives to look at the work.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And talk about the different mediums. You've done several. You've done TV and film, and anything on stage, like it was said with improv. I mean, what's your favorite medium? Do you have one, or do you tend to kind of gravitate towards one over the other?
Well, I don't know that I have one as much as I seem to be booking more feature, and I don't know what that is or why.
Yeah.
I'm kind of really thankful for the work, and I'm excited about any of it. But I seem to be booking more feature right now. But I mean, I think, you just have very different relationships with your character that you're playing, and you have really different relationships with the audience. I mean, there's something kind of special with like certain TV shows that really get some traction, and you can really look forward to every week watching that show, and the audience really kind of gets captivated by who your character is. You know what I mean? And so it's very different when you have a relationship with someone for television than the relationship that you have with your audience and your character for film, right?
Yeah, for sure. And talk about that film, doing feature films, because I know a lot of times with TV, it's a little more immediate. It's not so long after you do the work that you see it on TV or on streaming platforms. But then when you do like a film, sometimes it's several weeks, if not several months, before you actually see yourself on screen. So do you ever, when you're done, when you're wrapped, you go to the next project, do you ever kind of just wonder, like, I wonder how that's going to turn out, or I wonder how that's going to look when it's all said and done? Because, you have the music to add in and all the effects and everything else. I mean, what's it like when you first sit down and watch that feature that you spent so much time on, and then to actually see it on the screen? That's got to be a pretty cool moment.
So last week was so much fun because I haven't had one in so long. Last week I had 2 screenings, and Scrap we shot a year and a half ago. And it was the first time it was casting for screening a year and a half later. And Scrap actually will know in the next few weeks, they'll be releasing where you can watch it. So we're really excited. But it stars Anthony Rapp, Lana Parrilla, and Vivian Kerr.
Yeah.
And my scene was, I had a big scene with Anthony Rapp and another one with Vivian and a couple of the cast members. And it's so exciting. And you're so curious to see, like, how did it actually look, and how did, and you just have to, like, okay, I'll wait. And it was a year and a half later. And it was so exciting to see it. I mean, I'm very excited to see Scrap come out and for everyone else to get to see it. It's very surreal to see all those moments come together with music and editing and everything. And just, it's on the screen. It was awesome. And, a few days later, I had done a short film that was, it's called Othaniel. So it was a remake of Othello for Shakespeare. And it was a short film, and that was 2.5 years old. So I didn't see it yet. So it was so exciting to see all of it. But again, you just kind of do the work and then just say, eventually you'll get to see the final product. And it was a very fun week. So I got to see 2 of them, but it takes time. TV is a lot faster, especially soaps.
Yeah, soap operas. I know you're on I mean, when you're on a soap like General Hospital, I mean, it's a real time. I'm sure you're under a lot of time restraints because they have to get it out and so forth, and storylines change and that type of thing. But when you're on General Hospital, I mean, from what I understand, you don't get a lot of takes. I mean, you got to almost nail it almost on the first time, or in at least 2 times, I guess. Is that true? And it's talking about, is it kind of nerve wracking to be on a soap, to make sure you have to get it right almost every time?
So I'll tell you, it's so impressive for like the main cast because, soaps are no joke. I mean, you have, at least 20 pages or more of that you have to have memorized and prepared. And then you just get back up the next day and do the same thing. And like the main cast is just very inspirational because they get in there and just, it's like 1 take, 2's max, and they're just in and out really, really fast. And I think one of the things that they particularly do well is, I remember the first time I stepped foot on General Hospital, I just remember thinking, I love this. I would love to be a part of this because it's like a family.
Yeah.
They work very intensely. They work a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours. And it's just, they were really smart in the way that they structured it. So it's kind of run almost like a family unit. And it's just a very warm, very smart group of people. And it's so much fun. I stay in touch with the casting directors and always look forward to another booking with them. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. And the leads are super impressive because it's a lot of work and they knock it out typically in one take, rarely in two.
Yeah. What kind of advice can you give somebody, I guess, in the business? Like I know you had like kind of a fairy tale, start to your career, which is amazing. It fascinates me. I know I read it, and just to have you tell it again was amazing. But what do you give? What kind of advice could you give somebody who's maybe just finishing up school, or maybe like an arts high school, that type of thing, and they want to get into the industry? I mean, what's the biggest advice you can give somebody that's trying to get into this industry?
Yeah, I feel like to me, training is everything because you will get opportunities. Things will eventually open up for you and you want to be prepared for them. So I feel like there are several heavy hitter schools in Los Angeles. And I think that you should audit. Like that's kind of what I did. I audited 12 and I chose, a few of them and I've been training forever, and so I would just keep, and eventually I found one that just felt like this is home. And eventually I got to a space where I'm like, okay, this is so good. I also want to add this in and I think that everyone learns differently. I think your trajectory is differently. And it's really important to audit a whole bunch of them and then figure out what really resonates for you and take with a few of them. Like you're going to be doing this if you want to do this as a career, you're going to be doing it for years of training, years of work. We have at Stanker Studios, it's kind of notorious for where the working actor works. Like it's wild that some of the people, in fact, literally I just wrapped at 5:00 and hopped on this with you at 6. And Brock Ciarelli, he was in the middle. He's been on everything. He was there coaching me. I had 3 auditions and self-tapes that I had to bump out and he was the one doing it.
Wow.
So it's the people that you're seeing on TV shows and in movies, everything, are the people that are coaching you and taping you that you're working with. And so when you find the school that you really like, you'll find scene partners and you just dig into it. And they actually kind of help you with the networking and all of that as well. But again, if those doors open and you're not prepared, it could be years till the next opportunity comes along. So I would say the biggest thing is just really audit a bunch of schools. Right now, a lot of them still have online schools, which is super helpful for wherever you're at. And the auditing makes it very easy if it's on a Zoom. And then just really, really find the place that resonates for you, where you connect.
And I know you have a finance background, but, for somebody who doesn't, and, moving out to LA, it's not the cheapest place to live. So talk about the importance of managing your money while trying to get into the industry as well. Because I think a lot of people don't think about that when they move out to LA, and sometimes it's hard to even live.
Oh yeah, for sure. And even if you're one of the people that kind of gets stopped a few times and has that fairy tale start, life happens. I had major health problems. I had like all these other things happen that kind of delayed a lot of things for me. And I think that, everybody loves the fairy tale story, but even if you're like me and you had one of those starts, other things happen, life happens, or you're sick or things like that. It's very rare where you get stopped and then all of a sudden you're making millions a year. You know what I mean? Because even people that get stopped a lot, it's like, okay, so you have a booking here, a booking there. You literally at the end of a year, if you have a couple bookings, which is huge, you might still be like literally not making enough to pay all your bills. So I tell people like, you've got to just this is a long-term commitment. And so find a job that has a little bit of flexibility that you would be happy in for years, because you will be, Right. So I would say really to look for jobs that have LA is different. It's a different market because people when I was in DC, everything was politics, right?
Yeah, right.
In LA, the industry is everywhere. That's kind of what rules most of the city. And so people get that you might be a singer or an actor or a dancer, and they get that. That doesn't mean that you can't get jobs where you could have an apartment, pay your bills, have your car, have your savings, budget like crazy.
Yeah.
You want to put your money where you want your money to go. And it might be really fun to do this, and this. But then when that major audition comes up and maybe you want to invest in coaching with somebody really big or something like that, you'll be happier putting it there than splurging, going out for drinks or doing, you know what I mean? So you have to kind of be really disciplined and dedicated, but you're making choices that are really building the life that you actually want.
Right. Yeah. 100%. That's well said. Where can people find you, Nicole? I mean, talk about your social media and your handles and people where they can locate you.
Yeah, so I'm I'm on all of it. So you can find me on Instagram. It's actually Nicole Pep 0503. My birthday is May 3rd. So that's my Instagram is Nicole Pep 0503. For Twitter, it's just at Nicole Peplinski. And the same thing for Facebook. And I have a private account, and then I have like a public account on Facebook.
So everybody check out Nicole. Just an amazing talent. And, Nicole, before we go, what do you want your legacy to be down the road when it's all said and done? What do you want people to think of when they think of your name?
Wow, that's such a good question. I would want them to think that they should feel inspired to really embrace the abundant life available for them too.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, that's one of the reasons we do this show, because it's legacy or not. I mean, this is something that if you stay with it long enough, and you put in the work, eventually, it could take years, it could take months, it could take weeks, but regardless, it's going to happen if you stay with it. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
And I think, you're a testament to that, and everybody else that we have in this show, that if you stick with it long enough and you don't give up, it will happen eventually. And just watching the Oscars, last night, I mean, it's a perfect example of, your dreams can come true if you stay with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely.
So, thank you so much, Nicole, for being with us. It's been a real pleasure and an honor to have you on our show. And, best of luck to you on your projects coming up. And you're always welcome back on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you.